Late night store clerks. What is the strangest things that's happened on the job? Let's see. Closed a store to play hockey on the roof. Had a guy come in and inspect individual eggs in each carton until he found the perfect egg. Had an old guy who asked to use our bathroom, but first he needed reading material and asked for a porn mag from behind the counter. But when we gave it to him, he said he didn't like that one and asked for a different one. Then he died while shitting. You know. Normal shitty like that. I hope I'm not too late to the party here. I used to work the graveyard at a gas station near my place. Pretty normal night. Clean. Stock smokes. Clean again. Sit behind the counter. A woman came in about mid-30s with a little boy with her. She was in tears and her clothes were torn a bit. She came up and asked to use the phone. When she got off without getting an answer, she asked to stay here for a bit. I told her it would be no problem. About 20 minutes goes by and I wound up giving her and her kid free drinks and one of the sandwiches we have on the hot rack. She was in the store for about 30 minutes until her boyfriend came in and found her and her kid. He was pretty calm at first but then started screaming at her and telling her she needs to come with him. Luckily, before anything crazy happened, a cruiser pulls up to the front and 2 cops come in and intervened. He was arrested right there. I guess he had been beating her in front of her kid and she was trying to run away. I'm glad I got to keep her away from harm for at least a little bit. Was a scary night. Edit. Thank you for the gold. I wish I knew what came up those two. But I can only hope that asshole was put away and they were never bothered again. Colon. Close bracket. Had a guy pull up to the pump. Unhooked it wanting post pay. Our policy said not to authorize it between midnight and 5 AM. Prepay only. I announced this to the dude over the loudspeaker. I'm pretty sure he was wasted. He continued to get more and more belligerent. When he started beating the pumps with the nozzle hose, I called the cops. Dude starts banging on the door. Locked. No way he would get in. Can't. Gets frustrated. And finally just whips his deal out and starts swagging it in the general direction of the store. The CCTV is getting all this. So I just start laughing my ass off. Then the cops pull up. And 2 deputies put this poor, drunk, deal wagging man away in the back of a police car. I quit a few months after that. A man came in 10 times within a single hour. He kept leaving and coming back without buying a single thing. Finally, on the 10th time he comes up to the counter with a box of tampons. I proceeded to ask him, rough night? To which he responded, I really don't want to talk about it. A guy came in to buy beer after hours. Told him I couldn't sell. It was against the law. He pulled out a badge. Said I am the law. I called 911 and a cop shows up. Tells me if I can just let it go, I wouldn't have any more problems. I let it go. 2 weeks later, driving home late at night, way over the speed limit, I got pulled over. It was cop number 2. He came up to the car, recognized me, said slow down and left. As a cop myself, I despise the I am the law type cops. No, you're not, fucker. You should be a role model in society. Being cocky in front of a store clerk just shows what a petty human being you are. Oh, I got one. I worked at a Domino's in a really shitty part of town maybe 10 years ago. I was the insider, making the food and answering phones. So I was there the whole time, but after 8 PM we only delivered. Door was locked. Well, one night it's pouring rain. Thunder. Lightning, the whole deal. This massive guy walks up to the door and starts knocking loudly. I go up to see what the hell is going on and he yells through the door to give him so aluminum foil. Well, being curious as to why this guy is standing outside of a business in some crazy weather, I ask why. Also, there was a very seedy motel next door. I was thinking drugs. Apparently he wants to make a lightning rod. I look at the only driver who is in the building and he just says FCK it. Walks over, rips about 5 feet off the roll, folds it up so it'll fit through the mail slot and slides it through. This guy unfolds it in the pouring rain as we watch. Wraps it once around his head and make the rest into one big rod sticking out the top of his head. Looked like a conspiracy theorist with those tinfoil hats crossed with a unicorn. Then he ran off down the middle of the street. 10 minutes later some fat lady came by to ask if we had seen someone just like that guy. The one who made a lightning rod and stuck it on his head. He went that way. Oh god. Wonder what happened to them. I worked at a Walgreens in a not so great area and things would happen on the regular. But none were as weird as this. A man who was a regular came in every day to buy a bag of candy. Had no teeth and seemed really strange, but I was always cool with him since he was a regular. Then one night after getting his candy he comes back in, which he has never done before, and looks at me with the strangest look on his face and puts this small piece of paper on my counter. No words exchanged and he leaves for real this time. Then weirded out I opened the letter, which said, in the creepiest chicken scratch handwriting, "Hey, my name. I was wondering if you would like to see Spider-Man with me tomorrow at the mall at 7 PM. If so, meet me there at 6. And if I recall, there was some type of smiley face at the end. The dude was about 50 something and I was around 20. Of course I didn't go, but I never saw the dude in my store ever again. But I did recently see him at a fire and booked it when I saw him. Edit. I'm a dude." A large fully grown black adult mental patient would come in from time to time and ask for free snacks. I am not joking. He really was a mental patient. Apparently he would escape from his assisted living care building and I would always have to call the cops to come get him. This would happen multiple times. It got to the point where as soon as he came in, I would just give him an ice cream and just sit him down to keep him occupied. He probably only had the intelligence of a small child. Oh boy. I've got lots of these. I used to work at a very small gas station just outside Detroit. And since everyone else who worked there were 90-pound high school students, I always got to work the night shift. Yay me. I was robbed 4 times. Mugged 6. Shorted probably a dozen times. And had a knife thrown at me once. One night. Around 11:30 I'm standing behind the counter watching cars pass under the overpass when 6 guys in ski masks run into the store. 2 of them stand either side of me and opposite the counter, but facing towards the back of the store. They are barking orders at the others, telling them what to grab, what drinks and snacks. So for about maybe 5 minutes I'm standing there watching this unfold, wondering when I'm going to actually be robbed. Or if all they want is to steal food and tea, wouldn't really surprise me. Finally the ordering about stops, and they all line up between the 2 guys, who finally turn around to face me. Here it is. I thought. The demands for money or cigarettes or something. Nope. The guy's orderly stepped up to the counter, and the 2 men who had been giving orders took turns paying for the stuff they had grabbed. I have no idea who these men were, and it never happened again after that. Not super late, but at the last minute this dude came into Best Buy when I was working in the mobile store. He was tatted up, shaved head, had a Hispanic GF, and he was a pretty nice guy. Made me laugh a bit. I go to grab a phone out of the cabinet and a coworker asked how it was going with the neo-Nazi. I was confused. Apparently he had lots of tells, mostly from his tattoos. I thought my coworker was full of shit until I went back and noticed the small swastika tat on the space between his thumb and first finger. I got a little nervous being non-white. But he was super cool, personable, funny, and had a Hispanic GF for crying out loud. I consider it weird because he was so chill. Best neo-Nazi customer I've ever had. I had a regular customer come in and buy the same exact beer and cigarettes every day. He was always muttering something but I could never make out what he was saying. I really paid close attention one day and he was rambling on about horse racing and the different odds for the horses. He was an interesting character. Also had a guy come in high as FCK with his mom and he bought $60 worth of greeting cards. That guy was pretty cool. I worked at a 24/7 convenience store. One night I had a customer come in, clearly drunk, and ask where the bathrooms were. I directed him to the bathrooms, which were in the store, but he kept saying, "Oh okay. They're around the back." "No. They're right there." Okay. I'll go around back. He left through the front door. I imagined he would just go on the side of the building. So not my problem anymore. Then I look up and he's behind the cash register looking for a toilet, I assume. My co-worker left the back door unlocked. I was across the store stocking, so I yelled to my co-worker to get him out. The drunk dude was nice enough about the mix-up and pretended it was just a joke, I guess. Then my co-worker guided him to the actual restrooms. I started stocking near the restrooms to kind of keep an ear on him, and from inside the restroom, I hear, RFCK. I'm peeing everywhere. I'm gonna pee on the sink. The toilet. FCK this hand dryer. I'm just kidding, Clark guy. I'm only peeing in the toilet. The guy came out and laughing so hard he was crying. Then left after buying some Funans. He was laughing at himself the whole time on his way out. Like he'd just pulled the funniest prank of his life. I worked overnights in a beach town gas station convenience store combo. For my NJ, PA, VA, and FL people. It was notorious in the summer on Friday or Saturday night for the drunk Guidos to come in and get food drinks at 2 to 3 AM after last call at the beach bars. There was this group of girls that went out every weekend and came in every weekend. Always drove drunk. Every weekend. I didn't bother calling cops because they had a cop stationed on the road leaving Wawa. They got someone every night. One night. They came in, got their sandwiches and cigarettes. While they were leaving, they crashed directly into one of the gas station islands. I ran outside to make sure they were alright. The driver started panicking and backed up to go around it and ended up crashing into it again. At this point I decide to go back inside because she was being way too reckless. Ended up knocking a gas pump over and driving away. Ending was rather anticlimactic. We knew who she was and had her make model license. Cops ended up getting her. Was funny. TL doctor girl knocked over gas pumps drunk one night and tried to run thinking we wouldn't notice. I was working the graveyard shift at a big grocery store doing the self-checkout registers. I was the only person around the store other than the stock crew and maybe 2 or 3 customers. I got a call from the fuel center and the attendant was freaking out and told me someone was flipping over the Coke machines. WTF, right? And she was calling the police. I assumed the guy would just leave after that, so I held tight and waited for the police. Until this young blonde guy walks in and calmly walked past me. I tailed him for a few aisles, and once he turned the corner on the baby aisle he took off running and grabbed a big display of Dr. Seuss books and flung it to the ground. He ended up getting arrested at the entrance by a few cops and I got asked question after question. All in all, a fun night. Over 7 years. Had a super hot but super drunk girl stumble in from the club next door and ask me for sex. I turned her down. Tried to convince our pay victim to call the police while cleaning defensive wounds. Managed to only convince her to call her mom. Looked up our pay counseling and gave the numbers to her mom when she showed up. Was offered a blowjob. From a really huge, gross, pit-stained woman if I sold her beer after hours. While a gentleman slept in her truck. Had a guy run in with shoes tied to his hands and try to buy cat litter. Was robbed at Flaragan Point. In high school I worked at a 24 pharmacy which also had a small selection of beer. At about 2 AM this guy walks in 3 sheets to the wind. Saunters over to the beer and grabs 2 12 packs. He comes up to the counter and slams the beer down. Reaches into his pocket and pulls out a half-eaten taco and puts it on the counter. I couldn't say anything because I was so perplexed. I just let him walk out with the beer and told my bosses I thought he might have a gun also. Was the strangest thing I've ever seen. A couple weeks later he apparently tried this at the family-owned gas station across the street and got shot. I work at a deli and about a half hour from close a woman comes to the counter and just says "Lambone?" We had it, so I go to the back freezer. Come back to the counter and her daughter is there. She tells me to cancel the order. Meanwhile her mom is right beside her repeating "Lambone?" over and over again. She had dementia and I didn't even notice. I worked 11 PM 7 AM shift in an all-night garage for a few months when I was 18. There was this weird Vietnamese dude who drove a white Honda Prelude and always filled up with UQ6 66 of petrol. He wore the same pair of cut-offs every time, with blotches and bruises all over his legs, and used to literally wander in, leaning against the displays, pick up as many yogurts as he could carry, pay with a UQ50 note and stagger out. One time he came in with these two, obviously prostitute, women who were draped all over him with the biggest pupils I have ever seen. They stood at the counter while I scanned all their yogurts, and he spoke for the first and only time, staring at me, said to the women she can join us. Can't she? One of the women looked at me and said, you'll make a lot more money if you come with us, darling. I nervously laughed, took their cash and they left, grinning in silence. Story time. In high school I worked at a little mom and pop department store. We sold odds and ends at super high prices and they eventually went out of business when I was a couple years into college. Anyway, one night I was working a closing shift and that involves shutting down the registers, turning off all the lights, etc. We had just stocked these baby doll toys on the shelf that day. Those motion sensing ones that giggled and cooed when you got close to them. Well, the lights turning off must have triggered them because after the first chunk goes out we hear coos. Second chunk goes out, giggles. Third chunk goes out and we hear Islam as the light. Needless to say we shipped those suckers back to the manufacturer. They didn't know about the propaganda babies because they only said that phrase randomly, so it must have gotten past whatever testing process they had. Very freaky to hear in a dark store at night. I work at this shitty local fast food joint, which I won't name. Anyways, one night me and one other guy have to run the whole damn place because the manager can't be bothered to do his job. I don't get scared easily, but it gets spooky when it gets late. Like, I'm running to the dumpster and back. Then this arsehole that I work with starts making up this bullshit story about some serial killer, which ordinarily wouldn't bother me, but it's late. Then shit goes from bad to worse. The lights on the inside reflecting off the glass doesn't let us see out very far, but we can hear a guy kinda scraping, if that word makes sense, at the door. I turn and make eye contact and his eyes are f-king dinner plates. He kinda squeaks out a sentence. All I made out sounded something like the hash slinging slasher. I work nights at a gas station in a pretty good neighborhood in New Hampshire, so usually it's pretty boring. One night I did have a customer really creep me out. I was just getting ready to close down the store when a little old man came in. He was small and dressed in khakis and a button-down shirt. I made the usual small talk of asking him how his day was going. Then as I was handing him his change he firmly grabbed my wrist, made direct eye contact with me and said, hell is a real place and the devil has already got his hand on you, girl. Be careful. 11:30 PM and I was here and on break working till 4 AM in a sort of restaurant fast food store. Last week I saw a woman order 4 burgers but wanted no ingredients other than lettuce. Not even any bread. I offered if she would like to just buy the lettuce as a topping and just pay $1.25 for it, but she insisted on ordering 4 servings of burger lettuce at full burger price. I never understood this mentality. A buddy of mine worked at a Burger King and had this woman who would come and order a burger plus his toppings. When he informed her that what she wanted was a Whopper and that ordering one would save her about $2.50, she flipped her shit and insisted on paying more. So he went back and gave her a Whopper anyways. I guess my experiences were the opposite of most on here. Not a great part of town, but some wonderful people. I worked the midnight shift at 7-11. Right off the highway. I'm female. The first night. There are an awful lot of people trailing in from the Dosco factory next door. All night. At least one if not more. We have cups for the police. And I was perfectly happy to hand these out for sodas or coffee, 8 Oz, but they always picked up snacks and stuff. Found out later that they staggered their breaks to always have a guy in the store, so I never had any problems. They did this anytime a girl worked the night shift. Faith in humanity equals restored. Not so much a store clerk. But I worked the desk at a busy hospital in radiology on a night shift. This made me the only non-doctor who wasn't behind glass on the first floor when people came into the building. We were in a city and also had a psych hospital attached, so things got weird. The strangest one-time occurrence was a woman just jogging through fully naked. Not even socks. No hospital bracelet. And about 20 seconds behind her about 3 security men would run by asking which way. It was like a cartoon because she would run into a room. Someone would scream. She'd run out the back door. It went on for a few hours. Not a strange thing but funny all the same. I was hanging out with my friend as he is running his father's gas station. He has a yellow lab that is the official greeter. Friendliest dog in the world. A car pulls in to get gas and 2 girls hop out. One starts pumping the gas while the other washes the windshield cause it's the middle of summer and it's a bug slaughter fest on there. She is smoking hot and wearing a sundress that barely covers her ass. As she is leaning over the fender trying to reach the middle of the windshield, Duke the dog decides to offer a greeting, walks up behind her and sticks his cold nose in her crotch. She let out a slasher film scream and jumps onto the hood and starts swinging the squeegee behind her to fend off the molester while Duke sits patiently for his pat on the head. Meanwhile, we are laughing our asses off inside the station. Came in to relieve a co-worker who was severely shaken and who grabbed a bunch of beer after clocking out. She never really drank. I asked her what happened and she told me that an obviously drugged up chick came in. Went to the bathroom. Stayed there for what she guessed to be half an hour. Then left without saying anything. When she cleaned the bathroom, the woman had apparently miscarried. Sloppily cleaned up. And dumped everything in the trash. The trash bags we used are clear. From that day on she flat out refused to work nights. I work in a liquor store that closes at 11 PM. So I don't know if this counts as late night exactly. But the area I work in is infamous for being pretty shady. So we see a lot of characters. The strangest one that comes to mind happened just before closing about a year ago. I was walking up to the front door to lock it for the night when out of nowhere the door opens and a tiny, wet, furry thing is flying at my face. I panicked and jumped back into a wine display, smashing a few bottles, dripping in red wine and furious. I turned back around to the front door to see a little dog, maybe a Pomeranian. It was disgustingly dirty and it had been raining that night, lapping up the liquor while a homeless man barged into the store yelling, "My dog was in before 11. You have to serve me." Double quote. The man threw his dog into the store before him so he could get beer before we closed. I had no argument because according to policy, if someone is in the store before we lock the doors we have to serve him. He got his beer. But I still feel bad for that little alcoholic dog.